people. Put things back where you found them.
Clean up your own mess.
Don't take things that aren't yours.
Say you're sorry when you hurt somebody. Wash your hands before you eat.
Flush! Warm cookies and cold milk are good for you.
Live a balanced life. Think some. Learn some.
Draw!
Paint. Sing. Dance.
Play.
And work.
Every day some.
Take a nap every afternoon.
When you go out into the world, look for traffic, hold hands, and
Stick together.
Be aware of wonder.
Be aware of wonder.
Ask a kindergarten class how many of you can draw, and all their hands will shoot up.
Yes, of course we can draw.
All of us.
Well, what can you draw?
Anything.
Well, how about a dog eating a fire truck in the middle of the jungle?
Sure, how big do you want it?
Well, can any of you sing?
Oh, yes, of course we can sing.
Well, what can you sing?
Anything.
Well, what if you don't know the words?
That's okay. We'll make them up.
Let's sing.
Now?
Why not?
The wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round, round and round.
No.
The wheels on the bus.
How many of you can dance? What type of music do you like to dance to?
Any kind. Let's dance.
Now?
Sure, why not?
Can any of you act in plays? Can any of you play an instrument? Can any of you write poetry? Can any of you read, write, and count?
We're learning that stuff.
Now, try those similar questions on a college audience if they can draw, sing, paint, dance, or act, and those who do raise their hands would qualify their responses with their limitations.
I can play piano, just not very well. My mother made me.
I only dance to rock and roll.
I only sing in the shower.
I only draw conclusions.
When asked why the limitations,
I don't have any talent.
I haven't done any of that stuff since about the 3rd grade.
Who's got the time?
That's not my major.
you can imagine the response of an older audience.
I don't know, maybe after 3 martinis?
I think I left my straightener on.
Oh my gosh, I think I left my daughter in the car.
Oh, gee, is that the time?
What went wrong between kindergarten and today? Whatever happened to, yes, of course I can.
I've become so caught up in my grown-up stuff, it seems I've lost my spontaneity, perspective on living life, every day, at my job, with my family.
But I'm discovering that everything I ever needed to know, I learned in kindergarten. About how to live.
What to do?
How to be.
It's the sandbox code of ethics, not some grad school mumbo-jumbo that's had the biggest impact on me.
Think of the seed in the paper cup. I mean, who knows why the rib goes down and the plate goes up, but we're all like that. And just as the seed, the mouse, the bee, the goldfish will all die someday, well, so will we.
Everything you need to know is in there somewhere, from the golden rule to basic sanitation. Really, I've known these things all my life. Well, living them, that's another conversation.
Apply any of these items to your government, your family life, your world, or your career, and translate them into sophisticated grown-up terms, and they will all hold true and firm and clear.
Remember the first word you learned in your Dick and Jane book.
The biggest, most important word of all. Look.
If we all stopped to take a nap each day, think of how much better our world would be. And what if cleaning up their own mess were a matter of our government's policy?
And it's still true when we go out into the world today.
In these uncertain times, uncertain weather, it doesn't matter if you're 6 years old or 60.
We should all hold hands and stick together.
Remember the first word you learned in your Dick and Jane book. The biggest, most important word of all. Look. Look. Look.
the title on the chalkboard marquee.
Given the task of dramatizing a fairy tale for a teacher's conference, the kindergarten class decided on the classic old story, Cinderella.
You know how it goes. Shy, agreeable protagonist, victimized by abusive step-parents, waits for a wise matriarchal figure to rescue her, and delivers her transformed from codependency to bliss.
In other words, if you're good looking, good at heart, and have a fairy godmother, you got it made.
It was a good choice from the teacher's point of view because there are so many parts and every child could be in the play.
A list of characters was compiled as the class talked through the plot of the drama.
There was the absolutely ravishing Cinderella,
The evil stepmother,
The two wicked
But
but
stupid
stupid
stepsisters.
The beautiful and wise fairy godmother.
The pumpkin.
mice, coachmen, horses,
King.
All the people at the king's ball.
generals.
admirals,
Knights.
princesses,
And, of course, the ultimate object of fabled desire, the prince.
who, if you recall, was really only a salesman looking to push his inventory of glass slippers.
All the kids in the class could choose their own parts. As parts were allotted, each child was labeled with felt pen and paper and sent to stand on the opposite side of the classroom. Finally, every child had a part.
Except one small girl, who would remain quiet and disengaged throughout the selection process. Norma. A kid who was somehow different. Not weird, just different in the way she looked at things. Norma was always thinking, and like so many great but misunderstood thinkers, Norma was teased a lot by her classmates, causing her to live on the fringe of kindergarten society.
Well, Norma, said the teacher, what are you going to be?
Well, I'm going to be the pig!
Pig? There's no pig in the story of Cinderella.
Well, there is now.
Norma didn't relate to being a footman or a horse or a pumpkin.
She knew her character. Pig.
and she was not about to give up her part in the play to go over and stand against a wall where a loser would stand.
She intended to participate wherever pigs fit into the scheme of things, without giving up dignity or identity. She took it for granted that there was a place for pigs, and that the teacher would know that.
So, what do you say to a kid who is already thinking about costume of a pink tutu, pipe cleaner tails, and a paper cup for a nose?
What do you say to an innocent little pig who doesn't see her career as an actor teetering on the brink of utter humiliation?
And what do you say to all those pigs, all those who are different, who do not accept the available boxes and pigeonholes?
So, what did the teacher say at that moment?
Well, sometimes teachers talk more like fairy godmothers.
So be it.
Norma was declared the pig in the story of Cinderella.
It was quite fine with the rest of the class. No one else wanted to be the pig anyhow.
And, since there was nothing in the script explaining what the pig was supposed to do, the action was left up to Norma. As it turned out, Norma gave herself one of the all-time best walk-on parts in the history of children's theater. She decided she was Cinderella's personal pig. Wherever she went, Norma went.
She made no sound. She simply sat on her back haunches and observed what was going on, like a silent, supportive Greek chorus.
The expressions on her face reflected the details of the dramatic action, looking worried,
Sad.
Anxious.
hopeful,
Puzzled.
Mad.
bored.
Sick.
And pleased, as the moment required.
There was no doubt about what was going on, and no doubt it was important.
One look at the pig and you knew. The pig was so earnest, so sincere, so very there.
Norma created such dramatic tension that even those who knew how the story was supposed to end began to have doubts.
At the climax, when the prince finally placed the glass slipper on Cinderella's foot, and the ecstatic couple rode off and hugged and to live happily ever after, Norma finally made her move. She went wild with joy, jumping around the stage on her back feet, and barking like a dog.
The teacher had tried explaining to Norma, even if there was a pig in the story of Cinderella, there's no such thing as a dancing, barking pig.
Well, there is now.
It's true, Norma, it's true. Knock 'em dead, pig.
The presentation at the teachers' conference was a smash hit.
When Norma danced her dance, the crowd of weary teachers laughed and wept and cheered.
And when the pig stumbled out for a curtain call, the applause turned into a spontaneous standing ovation.
A spontaneous
with the brown hair, but Norma, the dancing, barking pig.
And they knew the real fairy godmother was not the child waving her fairy wand, but the teacher standing weeping on stage.
Kindergarten teachers know magic when they see it.
Well, the kindergarten class had many invitations to come and perform their highly acclaimed production of Cinderella. Sometimes the teachers would have to explain what about the production was so unique.
It has a pig in it, you see.
Oh, really?
Yes, the star of the show is a dancing, barking pig.
But there is no dancing, barking pig in Cinderella.
Well,
there is now.
Mississippi, 9 Mississippi, 10 Mississippi. Ready or not, here I come.
In the early dry dark of an October's evening, the neighborhood children were playing hide and seek. How long since I played hide and seek? 20 years. Okay, maybe more. I remember how I could join their game at any moment, if they invited me. But adults don't play hide and seek anymore. At least not for fun, anyway. Did you ever have a kid in your neighborhood who hid so good nobody could find him? We did. After a while, we'd go off and leave him to rot wherever he was. Sooner or later, he'd show up all mad because we didn't keep looking for him. But he wasn't playing the game the way it was supposed to be played. There's hiding and there's finding, he'd say. He'd say, it's hide and seek, and not hide and give up. We'd all yell about who made the rules and who cared about who. Anyways, and we wouldn't play with him again if he didn't get it straight. And things like that. Found you. Hide and seek and yell. But no matter what though, the next time he hit too good again. He's probably still hiding somewhere for all I know. This neighborhood game goes on, and there's a kid under my front window in a pile of leaves. He's been there for some time now, and everybody gave up on him at the base. I thought about going to the base and telling them where he was. Then I thought about setting the leaves on fire. Finally, I just yelled, "Get found, kid!" It's hard to know how to be helpful sometimes. A man I knew found out he had terminal cancer. He was a doctor and knew about dying. He didn't want to make his family and friends suffer through that with him, so he kept his secret. And he died. Everybody said how brave he was to bear his suffering in silence, but privately his family and friends said how angry they were, that he didn't need them. Didn't trust their strength, and they were hurt that he hadn't said goodbye. Hide and seek, grown-up style. Wanting to hide, needing to be sought, confused about being found. Better than hide and seek, I like a game called Sardines. Now, the person who's it goes and hides. And then everybody goes looking for her. But when they find her, they don't tell anyone. Instead, they hide there with her. Sooner or later, everybody's hiding together, all stacked in a heap like a pile of puppies. And then somebody giggles, and then somebody laughs, and everybody gets found. By the sound of laughter, everybody gets found.
True story.
True story. Larry Walters,
Our hero.
Walters is a truck driver, your average guy. He is sitting in his lawn chair in his backyard, wishing he could fly.
For as long as he could remember, he wanted to go up, to be high up in the air somehow, to ride the sky.
But there was no way he was ever going to pilot a plane, and hang gliding just looked too dangerous.
So he spent a lot of his summer afternoons sitting in his backyard in his old, ordinary aluminum lawn chair, the kind with the webbing and rivets. The next chapter takes place on July 2nd, 1982, and appears in television and newspapers across the country.
There's Larry Walters, up in the air over Los Angeles, flying at last. Still sitting in his aluminum lawn chair, only now it's hooked up to 45 helium-filled surplus weather balloons. Walters has on a parachute, a CB radio, a six-pack of Dr. Pepper, some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and a BB gun in order to pop some of the bullets to come down.
But instead of being just a couple hundred feet above his neighborhood, he shot up 11,000 feet right through the approach corridor of the Los Angeles International Airport. This is a true story.
The human race sits in its chair. Some say the human situation is hopeless. Others that there's nothing left to do.
Meanwhile, the Larry Walters of the world are too busy tying balloons to their chairs.
When asked by the press why he did it, he said,
You can't just sit there.
When asked if he was scared, he answered.
You bet.
When asked if he would do it again, he said,
No!
When asked, are you glad you did it? Are you glad you did it? Are you glad you did it? He grinned from ear to ear and said,
Yes, 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 oh yes!
If the dream is held close to the heart and imagination is applied to what you have close at hand,
everything is still possible.
Talking with a friend on the phone. She has the case of mid-field rot and a terminal cold she's had since September.
well, you don't ever get depressed, do you?
Are you kidding? There are times when I get so low, it takes an extension ladder to pull me out.
So what do you do? I mean, what do you do?
No one's ever pinned me down quite like that before. Normally they ask what I think they should do. My solace is not a religion, or rum, or deep sleep. It's Beethoven. I plug his Ninth Symphony on the stereo. Pull the earphones down tight. And listen. The music comes on like the first day of creation. And I think about old Mr. B. Mr. B knew a whole lot about being depressed and unhappy. He moved around from place to place trying to find the right place. Quarreled with his friends all the time, had a lousy love life. He wanted to sing well too. He even wanted to be a virtuoso pianist. But when he was still quite young, he began to lose his hearing, which is usually bad news for pianists and singers, right? But by 1818, when he was 48 years old, he had gone stone cold deaf, which makes it all the more amazing that just 5 years later he came out with his ninth. He never even heard it, he just thought it. So I sit there wondering if it could have ever sounded to Beethoven the way it sounds in my head. The crescendo rises, and my sternum starts to vibrate. And by the time the kettle drum drowned out all those pig chords, I'm on my feet, singing along with the gibberish and drum in the mighty choir, while jumping up and down while singing about The end of the world, the coming of God and all his angels. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Lord, uplifted, exalted, excited, affirmed, man alive. Out of all that trouble and sorrow, out of all that sadness came all this majesty and joy. He defied his fate with jubilation. And I can't just sit there rearing my hands together in my winter ash heap, feeling sorry for myself in the face of that music. Not only does it wipe out Spiel to rot, but it probably cures colds too. One night, when I am very rich, I'm going to rent me a grand hall, a mighty choir, and a great orchestra, and conduct the ninth. And I will personally play the kettle drum part all the way through to the glorious end, while simultaneously singing at the top of my lungs. And I will bless all the gods that be for Ludwig van Beethoven. Man alive!
This is 1999. From deep in the playground comes what sounds like a small-scale bus wreck followed by an air raid. If you push past all the screaming children, you would come upon this 3-year-old daughter, her young mother at the bottom of the slide after a long fall. The child, who is not hurt, sits with her favorite doll covered in mud and is experiencing what might bestly be described as a significant fluid loss. Tears mixed with mucus from a runny nose, mixed with blood from a scraped knee, mixed with saliva from a mouth that is wide open and making a noise that could drive a dog under a bed. The mother has remained amazingly calm and is still in the face of this catastrophe. The mother is calm because she is thinking about running away from home. Thinking about just turning and walking away since no one knows that this is her child. Getting in the car, driving to California maybe, changing her name, getting a job as a waitress in an all-night diner or as a Walmart front door greeter. Something, anything that does not involve contact with 3-year-olds. Oh sure, maybe someday she'll find this funny, but in the deepest part of her heart, she's sorry she ever married. Sorry she had children, and above all, sorry that she cannot trade in this 3-year-old daughter for one who doesn't scream her head off. Later, the mother sits with her daughter on the park bench until she falls asleep. She drives her home and tucks her in bed. The mother looks at her child for a long time. The mother does not want to run away from home.
This is 2004. The same mother paces in a living room. Her daughter is standing and yelling on the opposite side of the room.
I hate you! I want you out of my life forever!
Her daughter is now 16. The same daughter from the playground, the same daughter with the bloody knee, the same daughter with the muddy doll. The pride in her mother's eye. Or was until today.
You are a failure as a parent!
The tables have turned. Now it's the daughter who is running away from home. The mother is shouting at the ceiling.
Why me? Why me? Why me?
Well, the answer is simple. She has a daughter. That daughter is 16. Someday, some long day from now, she may laugh about even this. But for the moment, there is only anguish. Claire, let me in!
Never!
This is 2016. Same mother, same daughter, and they are in the kitchen baking a pie for Thanksgiving. They have been up since 6 in the morning constructing Mother's famous pumpkin pie recipe. As the mother begins to put the pie in the oven, she nearly burns her finger. The daughter carefully removes it from her mother's hands and places it on the oven rack. They love each other a lot. You can see that. They've been through a lot together, so they work hard to take care of their love.
Oh, there will be times when they're mad at each other again.
And there will be times when they hate each other.
But one of their favorite stories will always be Once Upon a Time on a Playground.
There was a slide,
A doll.
And a terrible tantrum.
The rap on the door was sharp, urgent, instant, a foreboding of crisis. Me rushing to the door, fumbling with the lock, my adrenaline pumping, preparing for emergency. Small boy, on expression. Hands me a scrawled note on much folded paper. My name is Donnie. I will rake your leaves, $1 a yard. I am deaf. You can write to me. I can read. I rake good. Now, behind our house is a row of tall, middle-aged, match-only maple trees, extravagantly decked out in a million-leaf sequins. And in season, the sequins detach and lie about the feet of these matrons like dressing gowns they've just stepped out of in preparation for the bath of winter. I like the way it looks. I like the way it looks very much.
His wife does not. The garden magazine doesn't like it either. Leaves should be raked. Leaves aren't good for grass. Leaves are untidy. Leaves are moldy, slimy.
There is a reason for leaves. There is no reason for mowed grass.
His wife does not see it this way.
There's an unspoken accusation in the air of laziness.
We have been through this before.
But this year, a bargain has been struck in the name of the scientific method.
Half of the yard will be properly raked.
And the other half will be left in the care of nature. Come summer, we shall see.
And so, my part will be raked.
And mine is not.
We will see.
Yes, we will. In a way, the trees are there because of the leaves. Zillions of seeds helicopter out of the sky to green the earth. The leaves follow to protect and nourish the next generation. But stony ground, rot, bugs, and people all interfere. But somehow, some seed makes it. Some tenacious seed takes hold and holds on for dear life and plants themselves to become the next generation. This process has been going on for ages, and we mess with this process at our peril? This is important. My name is Donnie. I will rake your leaves. $1 a yard. I am deaf. You can write to me. I can read. I rake good. He holds out the paper and pencil with patience and hope and goodwill. How can I explain to him the importance of the science experiment going on in my backyard? He turns to go quickly. I take the paper and pencil and write. Yes, I would like you to rake my leaves. There's a grave nod from the attentive businessman, a child. Do you rake them when they're wet? Yes. Do you own your own rake? No. This is a big yard. I think I should give you $2. 3? We have a contract. The rake is procured, and Donnie the deaf leaf raker goes to work in the fast-falling November twilight. In silence, he rakes, and in silence, I watch him through the window of the dark house. Are there any sounds at all in his mind? I wonder. He rakes the leaves into a large pile as instructed. Of course I will spread them out over the yard again after he's gone. Stubborn about this. But he goes back picking up missed leaves by hand, carrying them into the pile. He's stubborn about his values. Raking the leaves means all of the leaves. He signs to me that it is getting dark and that he must go home to eat, leaving his work unfinished. Having paid him in advance, I wonder if he will return. At my age, I'm getting cynical. But come morning, he has returned to his task. And after much meticulous work, the yard is leaf-free.
I see him stoop down and pick some of the brightest yellow leaves and stuff them into the pocket of his sweatshirt, along with a handful of helicopter seeds. He reports at the door, signing that the work is done. As he walks away up the street, I see him tossing one helicopter seed into the air after another. A fringe benefit. And I'm standing in my door in silence, smiling at his grace. A fringe benefit.
Tomorrow, I will go out to the yard and push the pile of leaves over the embankment into the ravine behind my house. I would do it in silence. The leaves and seeds will have to work out their destiny down there this year. I wouldn't have the heart to undo his work. My science experiment will just have to stand aside for something more human. The leaves have let go, the trees have let go, and now it's time for me to let go and cast my lot onto this child, who, like the seeds, is another one of nature's tenacious survivors. Hold on, Donnie. Hold on.
After the dishes are washed and the sink rinsed out, there remains in the strainer at the bottom of the sink what I will call momentarily some stuff. Now, any rational, objective, intelligent person would say that this is simply a mixture of food particles too big to go down the drain, composed of bits of protein, carbohydrates, fat, and fiber. Furthermore,
Stuff at the bottom of the strainer is toxic waste.
Deadly poison.
In other words, it's about enough to make you hurl.
One of the very few reasons I have any respect for my mother at all is because she reaches into the sink with her bare hands and picks up that lethal gunk and drops it into the garbage. To top that, I once saw her reach into the garbage can barehanded. A kind of unbelievable courage. She found a lost teaspoon and a clump of coffee grounds mixed with chicken fat. Scrambled eggs. I nearly threw up when she gave it to me to wash.
Once, in French class, we learned about the word hors d'oeuvre, and when our teacher proceeded to tell us it meant unspeakable filth, I knew exactly what she was talking about. I see it every night in the bottom of the sink. So that night at dishwashing time, I proceeded to tell my mom we have hors d'oeuvre in our sink, and she gave me her "my son the idiot" look and proceeded to tell me that the dinner I had just eaten was at that very moment in the same condition in my stomach, rotting.
No matter what my mother thinks, I know that stuff in the sink strainer is lethal and septic. It will give you leprosy or something worse. If you must ever accidentally touch it with your hands, you must never touch any other part of your body unless you have scalded, rinsed, and soaked. Even worse, I know that stuff can congeal and mutate and mush up into some living thing that can crawl out of your house and...
Come to think of it, my father never got closer than 3 feet to the kitchen sink. My mother said it was because he was lazy, but I knew what he knew, what I knew about the gunk in the sink. One day I told my father, I bet Jesus never had to wash the dishes and clean the sink. And he agreed. It was the only theological discussion we've ever had.
imagine a high school graduation speech.
How many of you would like to be adults, independent, on your own citizens?
Well, all hands would go up with some enthusiasm. And then the speaker would go on with a list of things that you must do as adults.
Clean the sink strainer.
Plunge out the toilet.
Clean up babies when they pee and poo.
Wipe runny noses.
Empty out the kitty litter. And scrape up dog poo.
Bury dead pets once they get run over in the street.
When you can do these things, then you will be an adult.
Some students may not want to go on at this point.
Being an adult is dirty work.
But someone's got to do it.
Summer of 1959, at the Feather River Inn near the town of Blairsden in the Sierra Nevada mountains of Northern California, a resort community. And I, just out of college, has a job that combines being the night desk clerk in the lodge and helping out with the horse wrangling at the stables. The owner is Italian-Swiss with European notions about conditions of employment. He and I do not get along. I think he's a fascist who wants peasant employees who know their place. And he thinks I'm a good example of how democracy can be carried too far. One week, the employees can serve the same thing for lunch every single day. 2 wieners, a mound of sauerkraut, and stale rolls. To compound insult with injury, the cost for the meals was deducted from our checks. I was outraged. On Friday night of that awful week, I was at my desk job at around 11 o'clock, and the night auditor had just come on duty. I went into the kitchen to get a bite to eat, and found notes to the chef to the effect that wieners and sauerkraut were on the employee menu for 2 more days. That tears it! I quit! For want of any better audience, I unloaded on the night auditor, Sigmund Volman. I have had it up to here! I am going to get a plate of wieners and sauerkraut, wake up the owner, and throw it on him! I am sick and tired of this crap and insulted, and nobody is going to make me eat wieners and sauerkraut for a whole week and make me pay for it! Who does he think he is, anyhow? How can life be sustained on wieners and sauerkraut? This is un-American! And I don't like wieners and sauerkraut enough to eat it for 1 day, for God's sake! And the whole hotel stinks anyhow! And the horses are all nags! And all the guests are idiots! And I'm packing my bags and heading for Montana, where they never heard of wieners and sauerkraut and wouldn't feed that stuff to pigs! I raved on this way for 20 minutes and needn't repeat it all here. You get the drift. My monologue was delivered at the top of my lungs, punctuated by blows on the front desk, the kicking of chairs, and much profanity. A call to arms, freedom, unions, uprisings, and the breaking of chains for the working masses. As I pitched my fit, Sigmund Volman sat watching me with sorrowful eyes. Put a bloodhound in a suit view of Sigmund Volman. He's got good reason to look sorrowful, though. Survivor of Auschwitz, 3 years, German Jew. He liked being alone at the night job. Gave him intellectual space, gave him peace and quiet. And more than anything, he could go into the kitchen and get a bite to eat whenever he needed to. All the wieners and sauerkraut he wanted. To him, a feast. More than that, there's nobody around at night to tell him what to do. In Auschwitz, he dreamed of such a time. The only person he sees at work is me, the nightly disturber of his dream. Our shifts overlap for an hour, and here I am again, a one-woman war party at full cry. Ah!
Are you finished?
No! Why?
Want to know what's wrong with you? It's not the boss. It's not the chef. And it's not this job.
What's wrong with me?
You think you know everything, but you don't know the difference between an inconvenience and a problem. If you break your neck, if your house is on fire, if you got nothing to eat, you got a problem. Everything else is just inconvenience. Life is inconvenient. Life is lumpy. If you learn to know the difference between an inconvenience and a problem, you'll live longer. And you won't annoy people like me so much. Good night.
There in the late night darkness of the Feather River Inn, Sigmund Volman simultaneously kicked my butt and opened a window in my mind. Problem or inconvenience? I call this the Volman test of reality. Life is lumpy, but a lump in the oatmeal, a lump in the throat, and a lump in the breast are not the same lump. We should learn to know the difference. Good night, Sig. There's a bench in the city where I live. Its structure is simple. 3 slabs of smooth gray granite. Having checked with the compass to be certain, I can tell you that the long sides face east and west, and the short ends point north and south. This sturdy seat has been placed with purpose on the highest ground, the highest hill in the city, so that on a clear summer's morning, you can see almost 60 miles in 3 directions. But this bench is in fact a tombstone in the cemetery, and I'll take you there instead if I could. You wouldn't feel uncomfortable sitting on it, I promise. You wouldn't even notice what it is at first. It's right on the edge of a paved lane that curves the burial grounds. It's placed so that you're clearly invited to use it. The placement of the bench, the consciousness of the view, all say that someone went through a lot of trouble to be useful in death. A parting gesture of quiet generosity has been made. Funerals, they have a certain narcissism to them. What I want for my funeral, what for my epitaph. A very human holding onto an identity as long as breath and granite last. But to me, tombstones are markers of loneliness. But this bench is another story, unique. First of all, there's no name inscribed on it, no dates, no conventional epitaph, just an open invitation to sit and think. What marks this grave is a bridge of silent companionship that bridges loneliness. It was on this bench, the summer morning after one of those milestone birthdays, when one crosses from the abstract intellectual knowledge that all human beings die, to the active realization that I will die. Me! I will not be! Sooner or later. Not only did I realize that I will die, but I walked away thinking, well, it's okay. I connect that moment of enlightenment with the peculiar sanctuary of invention whoever provided it. This bench will last hundreds of years. Many people will sit on it and think not of the name of its owner, but of the nameless joys of this sweet life. And the mystery of death. And how utterly amazing it all is.
It's a sweet life when you take the time to see it, and there's wonder inside me if I can find a way to free it. Sometimes it seems so easy to walk through life with my eyes closed, to heartache and strive. But every so often, even in my mind's darkest night, there comes streaming through my window a fragment of light.
A glimpse of truth for me to partake, and I might miss it if I'm not awake.
How can I live in the dark when I can be part of that light?
How do I capture that spark into the heart of the night? There's no way to measure what these fragments are worth, scattered moments to connection to life on this earth.
Fragments of understanding that can set your soul ablaze.
And flicker softly for the rest of your days.
Stop now and listen. Can you hear a faint melody just outside here?
All around us, a great symphony.
But every so often, you can hear your own voice in the mighty choir. How can I live in the dark when I can be part of the light?
How do we capture that spark and reflect it into the heart of the night?
I want to reflect the light.
I want to reflect the light. I want to reflect the light into the heart of the night.
Oops.
Ouch.
Uh-oh.
Ow.
Oops.
Uh-oh.
Eek.
Uh-oh.
Oops.
Huh?
Hug.
Uh-oh.
Pew.
Uh-oh.
Sheesh.
Uh-oh.
Ouch.
Uh-oh. Yikes.
Uh-oh. Ew.
Uh-oh.
Whoa.
Uh-oh.
Aww.
Uh-oh.
Yuck.
Uh-oh. 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 Uh-oh.
Oh isn't in the dictionary.
You hardly ever see it on page.
But it's part of our vocabulary.
And has been since the diaper age.
Uh-oh.
What did Adam say to Eve moments after she began to chew on the apple she gave him? Well, I believe he said,
Uh-oh.
Millions of sounds have come and gone throughout history.
As we reach ways to communicate more effectively.
The most potent words we use, in many cases, have been grunts and moans.
Together with shrugs and funny faces.
Boo! Nuh-uh!
Neener.
Ha ha ha! Uh-oh.
Quietly reverberating, since Adam's time, a symphony of squeaks and squawks, communicating and elaborating perfect thoughts.
Uh-oh. 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 Uh-oh.
Huh?
Uh-oh.
Ow.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Yikes.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Ow.
Uh-oh.
Ah.
Uh-oh.
Whoa.
Huh?
Ha!
Ooh.
Uh-uh.
Huh?
Uh-huh. Huh?
Wow.
Ah.
Oh. Ooh. Ooh.
Yippee-ki-yay.
Yippee.
Yippee!
Yippee.
Wee. Whoa. Uh-oh.
There are little clues that my life is entering a new stage. My children are beginning to look middle-aged, and they pat me a lot in a very patronizing manner for no apparent reason. I'm not gonna ask them why they pat me. I'll take all the affection in any way they want to dish it up. But another clue of change is a sudden desire to take small children on excursions. My granddaughter Sarah and I went on an excursion that sounds like the title of a B-grade children's story. Grandmother and granddaughter go to the zoo, first time. And we saw the lions and the tigers and the elephants and the giraffes and the kangaroos and the bears and the gorillas and all the rest. Every living creature the zoo had to offer, and even some possible dead ones. But for all mine, oh Sarah, look at that. Sarah was most impressed with the pigeons that hung around the concession stand. What she liked most about the pigeons was she could almost touch them, but not quite. No matter how carefully, cautiously, quietly she approached, the pigeons always managed to stay just one further step out of reach. The space between her and the pigeons moved in concert, and she spent most of the time at the zoo trying to close this moving space. All the other animals were over there, behind bars or moats or glass, in another world. But the pigeons were over here, in her world, and would be made even more real if she could just get her hands on one. Well, what would you do if you caught one, Sarah? She didn't know. Possessing was not in the plan. Just reaching for the pigeons was all that mattered to her. Riding home in a thunderstorm. Sarah fell asleep in the car seat behind me. In her parents' driveway, I sat and looked at her face for a long time. Who is this child, I wondered? Now that I'm older and wiser and have the time and patience I didn't have as a mother, I will approach Sarah just as she approaches the pigeons. Carefully, cautiously, and quietly. And wonder how she does how one can be so close, but so forever far at the same time. She is not mine, and she will never be. There are 2 people who think of her as their daughter, and there are 4 people who think of her as their granddaughter. But Sarah belongs only to herself. There will always be this moving space between us, this untraversable distance that must be treated with respect. And just as Sarah doesn't know what she'd do if she actually ever caught a pigeon, I don't know what I'd do if I actually ever caught Sarah. To love something and to possess something are not the same thing.
Is there any force of nature half as wild as the independent spirit of a 4-year-old child? Fearless, tireless, and able to just be, overflowing with curiosity. That was me back before diet pills, dentist drills, and visa bills. There was a time when you couldn't hold me back, when my imagination ran riot, when me and my brother flew to Mars and put crowns in the toaster just to try it. There was a time when we mooned passing cars, shrieking with defiant laughter. When we rode all the rides and ate all the junk at the fair, knowing we'd regret it soon after. There was a time when I would try anything, when I had creativity to burn. And now it feels like the only time I'm creative is when I'm filling out my tax return. Is there any force of nature more alive than a kid with an imagination in overdrive?
Building secret castles under the bed. Zooming at the speed of light on her sled. That was me back before.
Wrinkle cream.
Investment schemes.
Fading dreams. Whatever happened to the yes and me?
Ever since the day I was born, the world had seemed to edit me. Grown-ups always said, "Why are you running around? Why don't you sit and watch some TV?" And can't you pick some nicer friends?
And no reading under the covers after lights out.
And football is just for boys. And stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. And my friend said, "Your new lipstick looks gross. And you look a dork out on the field."
And bit by bit, I've lost the yes, the willingness to take a chance.
Now I edit myself and I say, what difference could my vote possibly make?
Or there's nothing I can do for the homeless.
And I don't have the time to take Italian lessons.
Or write my mom.
Or learn to paint?
Or play guitar. Or plant a garden.
Although I seem to find the time to watch Grey's Anatomy. Is there any force of nature with more power
than a kid spitting daydreams at 1,000 miles an hour? Oh! Digging for buried treasure in the backyard. Holding secret meetings with a dog standing guard. That was me back before. Bouncing checks. A spiteful ex.
Opposite sex.
It's not that I'd want to be a kid again, wetting the bed and all that stuff.
Plus, pimples and braces and teenage angst. Thanks anyways, but once was enough. But really, isn't there some way to keep my cynicism at bay? To live a little closer to the truth, as I simply did in my youth.
Yes, I'd love to find that spontaneity.
As a grown-up with my family and my work, and in the midst of daily ordinariness, there has to be a grown-up way to say, yes! Oh my God! Yes! The most time-bound man I know lives in my neighborhood.
always late, always harassed and fussed out. I'm not exactly sure what he does for a living, but it seems to include buying and selling something downtown. He's a businessman. His appropriate choice of transportation is a brand new Range Rover, a vehicle built by the British for the high adventure in the wilds of Africa. It is equally capable in steep canyons, quicksand, and blizzard conditions. It can outrun a lion and take a rhino charge head-on. This particular Beltmobile is equipped with a winch, a gun rack, a CB radio, an impressive stereo system, 2 cellular phones, a fax machine, and a coffee maker in the glove compartment. Now, daily I see my neighbor rushing from his home, burdened with the impediments of high adventure, carrying his golf bag, gym bag, raincoat, umbrella, coffee, a sack of garbage for the dumpster, and of course, his briefcase. Now, about the briefcase. It is made of the purest, unblemished belting leather. The hides of 4 carefully selected cows who gave their life so that he might carry this talisman of success. It has brass fittings, a combination lock, and his name embossed in gold. So, it's a Tuesday morning around 7 o'clock on a fine day in June. The neighbor lady and I hit the road headed for work around the same time. She's a social worker for the Episcopal Church and drives an 8-year-old Ford Just Get Me There and Back Please God sedan. And I drive a 1952 Go Ahead and Hit Me pickup truck. At the same moment, the owner of the Range Rover rushes up. His life is leveraged to the max these days, and his mind is in 3 continents at once. He's in no mood for small talk. He grunts at us as he loads his lorry for his expedition downtown into the front seat and cranks up his mighty engine like he's on the pole to the Indianapolis 500. Uh-oh. He left his coffee cup and briefcase on the roof of his Range Rover, and there they remain as he rolls away. To the rescue comes the nice lady social worker for the Episcopal Church in her Ford. She chases after him, urgently honking her horn, which he ignores, because he is already on his phone talking to London. But finally, her unceasing honk, 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 honk gets the best of him. He throws his phone to the floor of the car, leans out the window, and displays the middle finger of his left hand. But the neighbor lady is focused on her rescue mission and continues chasing after him, trying to get him to stop. And me, driving close behind like a little third float in this little parade, likewise, trying to get his attention with my awuga horn I salvaged out with my old Model A. The combination of honk, honk, honk and awuga, awuga, awuga finally gets his attention. He jams on the brakes and flings open the door, trying to get out without first unlatching his seatbelt. At the same moment, his morning cup of coffee bounces off the roof, off the hood, and smashes right into the middle of the street, followed by his bass brown briefcase, which slides across the hood with the fingernails on chalkboard screech and lands right on top of the broken coffee cup. The dear lady coasts slowly around the scene of the accident, smiles, waves at her neighbor dangling from the clutches of a seatbelt, and sings out, "Have a nice day." And no, she did not, as you might anticipate, run over the briefcase. No, she did not. I did. Did I run it over on purpose? I don't know. As I say, none of us is pure.
Next. Next.
Where am I?
Have you completed the form?
Sure was a long time up.
Yes. Have you completed the form?
Almost.
Almost.
I just have one question.
A question.
Yeah.
Well,
About this one blank.
which blank?
The one that says religion. Blank.
Yes. Do you believe in God? Do you believe in God?
I believe in Howard.
Howard. You believe in Howard.
It all has to do with my mother's maiden name.
Your mother's maiden name.
Was Howard. She was part of a big family in Memphis, the Howard family. And so I grew up thinking of myself as part of the Howard family.
And what does this have to do with God?
Oh, well, it's really quite simple. See, it all started when I got packed off to Sunday school at about age 4, and the first thing we learned was the Lord's Prayer, which begins, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And what I heard was, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. So, since little kids tend to mutter their prayers anyways, I went right on believing that God's name was Howard, and that I was a part of his family, the Howards. Since my grandfather had died and gone to heaven also, God and my grandfather got all mixed up in my head as one and the same, which meant I had a pretty comfy notion about God. When I knelt beside my bed each night and prayed, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, I thought of my grandfather and what a big shot he was. Because, of course, the prayer ends, For thine is the kingdom and the glory forever and ever. Amen. I went to bed feeling pretty well connected with the universe for a long time.
You're putting me on, right?
No. I belong to the whole big scheme of things. I had worked and lived and had my being in the whole family store. The whole world was a Howard family enterprise.
So, do you still believe in Howard?
Let me put it this way. 13th century Christian mystic Meister Eckhart once said, The eye with which I see God is the eye with which God sees me.
What the heck is that supposed to mean?
Not only do I believe in Howard, but Howard believes in me. It's February and I have an appointment for physical. In the waiting room are 2 other people much older than I. Very nice looking, tidy, intelligent looking couple. Probably in their 80s. Here to see the doctor too, I guess. So I'm sitting here in my February state of mind, and this nice old man next to me nudges me and says,
Hey, Merry Christmas.
This is February, right? Yeah, it's February. And I look at him. Merry Christmas to you. And he sits back and he starts singing.
Oh, you better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town.
All the way through the song, finishes and says,
Hey, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. And I'm thinking, could be me. Well, the nurse comes for him and he goes off.
Fred, come with me.
We've been married for 60 years and Fred's 87 now. And, well, in my family we say his wiring's come loose. He's had a few little strokes and some Alzheimer's. He's just getting old. And every once in a while he suddenly announces it's Christmas. The first time he did it, I thought I was crazy. I thought, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Because I heard him shout from upstairs, it's Christmas Eve, Merry Christmas, let's decorate the tree. It was so strange. I called my daughters and told them what was going on. They came over, and they brought presents too. They said, for God's sakes, Mother, it's not illegal. Well, we had a wonderful time. And the best part of the whole affair was that he said to me, you know, I can't remember some things from when I was a child. Tell me about Christmas when I was a little boy. Well, he had a terrible childhood. His mother was a drunk. His father ran off. He was virtually orphaned and had to leave home at a very, very young age. Well, I didn't want to tell him that, so I did something that I'd never, ever done or thought about doing in the 60 years with this man. I lied to him. I told him about the Christmas he got a bicycle and a rocking horse, and when he was in a pageant. Oh, and he loved it. One of the best Christmases we ever had, even if it was in July. And at about bedtime that night, he forgot all about it. It went right out of his mind. We never did get to Christmas that year. Christmas Eve and good memories seemed to be enough. But 4 months later, it happened all over again. I heard him singing carols upstairs, and here came Christmas down the stairs. Merry Christmas! And I thought, what harm? So this has happened 4 or 5 times now, in July, October, twice in December, and now in February. And every time he wants me to tell him about his childhood, and I do. You know, I'm getting so good at lying about how good his Christmases used to be, I have to believe it myself. And I call the girls and say, Merry Christmas into the phone, and they come over and bake cookies and bring presents and sing carols, the whole thing. Twice they even got as far as putting up the Christmas tree. They love to do it.
Well, just then old Fred comes back shuffling up the hall.
Hey, Merry Christmas.
See, the girls don't think of it as Christmas anymore. They think of it as Father's Day. And I kind of think of it as Valentine's Day. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Do you know about geek dancing?
Yeah.
You heard me right. Not Greek dancing, but geek dancing. Actually, geek is in the dictionary. It refers to a carnival performer whose act consists of doing weird things, like biting the head off of a live chicken.
In current slang, a geek is someone who looks like he might be capable of doing something like that. A person who bears watching.
But I've also heard kids use the word geek to describe anyone who is older and more independent in lifestyle.
I think there's a kind of compliment in there somewhere. It means a little strange, but interesting. I mean, a lot of us older types are a bit geeky. You reach the point in life where you just decide to go ahead and weird out. You start at the door, headed to the grocery store, in your slippers, your bedroom slippers. You don't turn around and change your shoes, and you don't care who sees you. Or you're headed to the mailbox, in your bathrobe, your oldest, sleaziest bathrobe, and you don't give a damn who sees you. Or the doorbell rings. You don't check to see what you look like. It's their problem, whoever they are. Some people call this going to see. Others call it the beginning of wisdom. Take your pick.
A while back, I decided it was time to buy a cemetery plot. What did all childhood experience? Popular wisdom said that the 3 most important things to consider in real estate decisions are location, location, location.
But I thought, it's a grave. What difference does the view really make? And resale value? Not a problem. Well, I made my purchase. And now, from time to time, I like to go pay my respects to my final resting place. Visiting my own grave helps untwist the snarls in my mind and soul, especially when I lose track of what's important. On a recent visit, I noticed that my neighboring property owners were James E. Grimm and Jacob Pleasant. Being buried between Grimm and Pleasant has a poetic rightness, don't you think? Once I went to the cemetery late at night, bringing my favorite blanket with me. I laid it down, stretched out, and was startled. This grave has an amazing view. Looking straight up, I could see starshine that was coming to me from millions of light years away, trying to conceive of the magnitude and complexity of space. I just lay there, looking into the infinite darkness filled with all that light. You know, I never liked that verse that says, "Dust thou art, and to dust thou shalt return." We are energy, which is interchangeable with light, where our hopes, dreams, fears, blissfulness, and melancholy, pulled together by wisdom and pulled apart by folly, so much more than dust. You know, the Bible verse should say instead, "Miracle thou art, and to mystery thou shalt return." The light that I see from my grave started traveling through space ages before I came into being. The star, which is the source of that light, may have died off by now, gone. That's a scientific fact. But somehow, light still shines on. My life gives off another kind of light. That light may shine on long after the source is gone.
Questions. Are there any questions? What is the meaning of life? I beg your pardon? What is the meaning of life? Are you kidding me? Well, who knows? You may have the answer, and I'd really hate to miss it because I was too socially inhibited to ask.
Once.
And only once I asked that question.
What is the meaning of life?
What is the meaning of life?
What is the meaning of life? And got a serious answer. An answer that is still with me today. The place where that happened has a distinct power of its own. On the Greek island of Crete, off a small village near Rocky Bay, sits an institute dedicated to human peace and understanding, but especially to reconciliation between the Germans and the natives of Crete.
The site is important because it overlooks a small airstrip where Nazi paratroopers invaded the island and were attacked by peasants wielding kitchen knives and hay scythes.
The retribution was terrible. Population of whole villages were lined up and shot for assaulting Hitler's finest troops.
High above the institute sits a single cross marking the mass grave of the native partisans, and across the bay on another hill sits the regimented burial ground of the Nazi paratroopers. The memorials are placed there so that all might remember and never forget.
Hatred was the only weapon the Greeks had at the end. It was a weapon many vowed never to give up.
In this historical place where the stone of hatred had turned hard and thick, the existence of an institute dedicated to healing the wounds of war was a fragile paradox.
So, how has it come to be here?
The answer is a man, Alexander Papaderos. Doctor of philosophy, teacher, politician, son of this soil. At the end of the war, Papaderos came to believe that the people of Crete and those of Germany had much to give one another, much to learn from one another. For if they could forgive and construct a creative relationship, then anyone on this earth could. Well, Papaderos succeeded. The Institute became a reality, a source of productive interaction between the two countries. By the time I came to the Institute for a summer session, Alexander Papaderos was a living legend. One look at him and you saw his strength, his intelligence, and his passion. At the last session of a 2-week seminar, Papaderos came from the back of the room and stood to the front, where he looked out the window of an open Greek sunlight and looked. We followed his gaze across the bay to an iron cross marking a German cemetery. He turned and asked,
Are there any questions?
These 2 weeks have generated enough questions for a lifetime, but for now, there is only silence.
So I asked, Dr. Papaderos, what is the meaning of life?
People laughed at the absurdity of the question, and they stirred to go.
He raised his hand and stirred the room.
I will answer the question.
He fished into his leather billfold and pulled out a very small round mirror. And what he said went like this.
When I was a small child, during the war, we were very, very poor and lived in a remote village. One day, I came across the pieces of a broken mirror. A German motorcycle had been wrecked in this place.
I tried to find all the pieces and fit them back together, but it was simply not possible. So I kept the largest piece, this one. I would grind it on a stone until it was round, and it became a game to me to try to reflect light into the most inaccessible places I could find. Into deep holes, dark closets, and crevices. I was fascinated by the fact that I could reflect light in the most inaccessible places.
But as I went about my growing up, I would take it out in idle moments and renew the challenge of the game. But as I became an adult, I realized that this was more than just a game, but a metaphor for what I do in my life. I realized that I am not the light, but the source of the light.
The truth, the understanding,
The knowledge.
Is there, and will only shine in dark places if I reflect it.
I am a fragment of a mirror, whose hope designed a shape that I do not know. Nevertheless, with what I have, I can reflect the light into the darkest places of this earth, into the blackest places of the hearts of men, and change some things in some people. Perhaps others may see or do likewise. This is what I'm about. This is the meaning of my life.
And holding the small mirror carefully, he caught the bright rays of the daylight streaming through the window and reflected them onto my face and onto our hands, folded on the classroom desks.
Are there any questions?
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 There's no way to measure what these fragments are worth.
Scattered moments of connection to this life on earth.
Flashes of understanding that can set your soul ablaze.
To flicker softly through all your days. Stop now and listen.
Can you hear a faint melody?
Just outside here, all around us, a great symphony. But nothing in life has the power to inspire like adding your own voice to the mighty choir.
How can we
How
in
in the dark
we
can be a part of that light? How do we have to shed a spark and reflect it into the heart of the night?